Hello and welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman. Joining us right now from Washington, D.C. is U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, who represents the state of Wisconsin. Senator Johnson, as always, it's great to have you back with us here on Newsmax TV.
Hello, John. It's great to be on.
All right, so this week was a big week for you. You filed a lawsuit suing the Obama administration about a certain provision of the president's namesake health care law. Tell us what your end game is here by filing this lawsuit.
Well, first of all, it's a lawsuit to overturn the Office of Personnel Management ruling that grants special treatment to members of Congress as it relates to them purchasing health care in the exchange with pre-tax dollars, unlike all the millions of Americans who are going to lose their employer-sponsored care, get dumped in the exchange, and they're going to have to purchase health care with after-tax dollars. So it's just simply an issue of basic fairness. As well, it's also all about upholding the rule of law. President Obama, the Office of Personnel Management, have no legal authority to just change the law. If they don't like it, they should come to Congress and they should actually pass a new law to make changes to the law. So there are really two primary issues that special treatment. Americans have an expectation, a justifiable expectation that members of Congress should live and be subject to the laws, the letter of the law that they impose on the rest of Americans. And that's really what this lawsuit's all about.
Now, I know you're targeting this specific provision here, but is the long-term goal here weakening the law, maybe picking off these provisions one by one, and to the point where the law is, even more workable than some say it already is?
Well, I hear it all the time. What are you going to do about a president who simply has no respect for the constraints placed on him by the Constitution, that is not upholding his oath to faithfully execute the law? And this is one instance where I believe, and I've got a pretty good legal team here with Paul Clement, a Wisconsin native who argued against Obamacare in the Supreme Court, and Rick Essenberg in Wisconsin, that believe this is one situation where a member of Congress has standing to provide that long overdue check on a president who really is increasingly really totally unconstrained by constitutional limits.
Now, there are folks out there who will say this makes a lot of sense, that members of Congress, folks like yourself, should not get this special exemption. But what about the younger staffers, the junior staffers, who quite frankly don't make a lot of money when they first arrive in Washington? These are folks who come here hoping to have a role in government someday. When folks say that if you win, if you're successful here with this strategy, and other members of the GOP who support this, it's going to make it simply impossible for a lot of people to go to Washington, young folks right out of college, and start a career in public service in government.
Well, first of all, every member of Congress has a pretty good sized budget, and they really can afford to hire good people and actually provide them benefits. And so I think that's really kind of a canard when it comes to an issue. The point being is we have got Democrat senators here that are turning a total deaf ear to the pleas of the American public that are experiencing the real harm and damage of Obamacare. And until those members have the full experience, feel the pain themselves about what they've done to other Americans, they simply are going to keep their head in the sand. They're going to plow forward, and they're not going to act responsibly to start repairing the damage and start limiting the future damage of this just totally unworkable law. So, it's let's face it, this is why they wrote the law this way. They put on the big show during the debate of health care. Remember, it was a pretty skeptical public back then. So Democrats that were supporting this bill said, hey, listen, we're going to be happy to subject ourselves to every part of this law. We'll buy coverage through the exchanges. This is going to be great. They thought it was great until all of a sudden it's 0 hour here now. They're starting to realize for themselves what the damage is. That's when they went running to President Obama for special treatment, and they got it. That's what I'm trying to overturn.
Now, this law has been challenged in pretty much every conceivable fashion here. It's been through the Supreme Court. There's been a presidential election where Obama got reelected. There's been numerous challenges within the House of Representatives to repeal or replace the law here. What makes you think that this lawsuit could be any different in terms of what you hope to accomplish in getting rid of this law?
Well, we've taken the legislative avenue. And unfortunately, President Obama got reelected, and Senator Harry Reid is in firm control of the Senate. So all the good things the House does dies in the United States Senate. And of course, President Obama would veto it anyway. So legislatively, until we actually start winning elections, take over the Senate, put in a Republican president, somebody that actually repeal this law once and for all in 2016, this is sort of our only course of action here. And again, when a member of Congress finally has has a chance to obtain standing to overturn something like this, I certainly feel I have an obligation to do that. We have got to maintain that delicate balance, these checks and balances between the three branches. During my lifetime, I've just seen presidential authority and power just grow, generally at the expense of Congress. Now, let's face it, public opinion is pretty low of Congress. It's probably even too high, even at 7%. But it's important that Congress maintains its position so we can provide a check on an administration, certainly President Obama, that knows no bounds by the Constitution.
Now, speaking of the legislative branch, have you had a chance to kind of powwow with Republican Congressman Jim Sensenbrenner, also of your home state of Wisconsin? He was not exactly in favor of your tactic here on this. Have you guys had a chance to talk yet?
Well, listen, I respect Congressman Sensenbrenner. We had a talk before he issued his press release. I'm disappointed he did. I'm puzzled by why he did, because let's face it, the House passed almost with unanimous support by Republicans. Only 2 Republican House members voted against a provision to a continuing resolution during the funding debate that would have the exact same result as if I'm successful with this lawsuit. So I'm not quite sure where Congressman Sensenbrenner is coming in terms of his criticism, what I'm trying to do, because I'm just trying to do through the courts what the House passed with, like I say, the total support of Republicans except for 2.
Yeah, and if folks haven't heard this, Sensenbrenner basically said this was a political stunt, but he agrees with you in principle, but this not necessarily in the tactics that are being used here. Let's leave that issue aside and move on. The Senate took a key vote last night, Senator Johnson, and confirmed Janet Yellen as the next chairperson of the head of the Federal Reserve Bank here. What kind of situation do you feel like she's inheriting from outgoing Fed Chair Ben Bernanke?
Well, she's inheriting a Fed that has dramatically increased the size of its balance sheet by printing all this money, and those chickens are going to come home to roost.
What was the feeling? What was the feeling in the room last night when you, 60 senators voted? I'm sorry, I don't have the vote total. I'm thinking about the unemployment benefits tally here. But what was the feeling in the room amongst you and some of your other conservative senators once the nomination was set in stone, so to speak?
Well, in general, I'm a senator that does believe in the president has got a lot of latitude in terms of appointing his advisors. I mean, elections do have meaning. I voted against Janet Yellen. First of all, she was a big supporter of Dodd-Frank, which I think is just going to be a disastrous law long term on our country. And let's face it, she is all for the continuation of printing money, which, like I say, at some point in time, that's going to have some very harmful effects. It's going to result in inflation at some point in time when the economy starts heating up. So I would have rather seen somebody in the Fed that was far more conservative in their approach of expanding the monetary base. And
another topic, for folks who don't know, you also serve on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. I think we need to spend a little bit of time and talk about the situation in Iraq right now. It's devolving, things are getting worse, the violence is increasing on a daily basis. What is the U.S. supposed to do here? We know the White House said earlier this week they're sending more ammunition, more weapons, more missiles to the Iraqi government. But what do you feel like is the proper course of action at this point in time?
Well, this is a tragedy. After all the sacrifices, all the blood and treasure that were spent trying to stabilize and provide some democracy in that region, the blunder that occurred when President Obama failed to negotiate a status of force agreement so we could leave a stabilizing force there to, again, not only stabilize the situation in Iraq, but also that would have prevented the overflights from Iran to supplying the Syrian government, that criminal regime. So what's happening, I used the term chickens coming home to roost earlier. I mean, that's what's basically happening now in Iraq with just tragic consequences. And a lot of this is really also caused by the spilling over, the regional effect of the Syrian conflict, which again, this president, in an utter failure to lead. A member of his own administration said his technique is leading from behind, which anybody else would define as following. Whether we like it or not, America is the world's superpower. We are the world's leader. When we fail to lead, some very bad things happen in this world. And again, it's just a tragedy that we didn't leave a stabilizing force in Iraq, and the situation there is devolving rapidly.
All right, Senator Ron Johnson there discussing President Obama's foreign policy in relation to Iraq, saying these are chickens coming home to roost. The situation in Iraq deserves some more attention. We'll spend some more time on that. But Senator, thanks for joining us and talking about these issues, and we hope to have you back soon.
Have a great day.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV. you.